With graduation just half a year away and a job already secured, do we really need that woman anymore? No need, but at least until we inherit, she's of some use. I wish I could dispose of the trash sooner, though. It seems Andrew was also there. Since we had separate bedrooms, I only realized at this moment that Andrew was awake. I hadn't intended to eavesdrop on their conversation, but their unsettling talk rooted me to the spot, unable to move. They continued their hurtful conversation without knowing I was listening. For the next half year, I pretended I hadn't heard anything and kept my demeanor unchanged. Then came the day of Tom's college graduation. He was all geared up from the morning and left home. Of course, there was no word of thanks for raising him or an invitation to dine out. Just a heads up, I won't need dinner today, was all he said before leaving. Had I not heard that conversation, I might not have minded, but I couldn't help feeling a simple word to me wouldn't have been too much to ask. He's probably going out to eat with his biological mom and Andrew. Andrew also said he wouldn't need dinner. After seeing them off, I was alone in the now quiet room, holding a pen and paper. I'm Sally Kirk, currently 55 years old. I've lived with my husband Andrew and his son Tom for 20 years. Andrew and I are both in our second marriage. I had a falling out with my former husband's family and was emotionally distressed, discarded by my in-laws like trash. It was Andrew who approached me during these tough times. We were high school classmates. We weren't close, but at a small reunion for close friends, Andrew learned I was divorced and reached out, which led to us exchanging contacts. At the time, Andrew was a single father, raising his 2-year-old son Tom. Life isn't over for us yet, let's pull through. His words were a huge relief to me. It didn't take long to understand each other's emotional scars, and soon we were drawn to each other. I was scared to remarry, but pushed by Andrew's approach, I decided to date him. Then, at 35, I remarried. After the wedding, I quit my job and became a full-time homemaker. Despite discouragement from others about quitting my job and remarrying with a child, Tom was only 2 years old. I thought it was crucial to spend time together and be accepted as a family. Since Tom was still very young, and I always loved kids, I wanted to devote myself to parenting. I saw no issue with remarrying with a child. However, soon after the marriage, I realized my views were naive. Tom was a picky eater and a poor sleeper. He was extremely shy, crying just seeing my face. Hoping his shyness was just a phase, I did my best to become his mother. I endured his night crying and played with him wholeheartedly during the day, but he wouldn't open up to me. Seeing my struggle, Andrew commented, "His mom was beautiful. Maybe he's just not used to your face." He said it without malice, just an offhand remark. But at that moment, I felt deeply hurt as a woman, a wife, and a mother. After that, Andrew often compared me to his ex-wife on various occasions. "Taste this soup. The one my ex-wife made was better," he'd say after sipping the soup. "She was terrible at parenting. At least you could do better in that." Each time, his comments seemed trivial but were hurtful. Before marriage, he always encouraged me, but afterward, I sometimes felt treated like a slave. No matter what I did, I couldn't win Tom's affection, and Andrew's behavior was terrible. In our first year of marriage, the thought of divorce crossed my mind more than once. But I didn't want to be ridiculed by others for failing again. I kept telling myself, slow and steady wins the race, and diligently carried on with housework and parenting. Tom never warmed up to me. He stopped crying at the sight of me, but he never smiled or called me mom. Despite his friendliness to Andrew, Andrew's family, and even strangers, he seemed to dislike me for some reason. Yet, I gradually began to feel affection for Tom. I was happy to see him grow. "Don't come to the kindergarten," he said, barely acknowledging me as his mom. When I attended the kindergarten observation, Tom angrily shooed me away. Consulting the teacher didn't help either, as I was told, he's just being clingy. I was happy to see him grow, but troubled by our strained relationship. "He'll get used to it," Andrew would say, but he never really addressed my concerns. One day, I asked Tom, Do you know how much I love you? How can I make you love me? Tom looked surprised at my question. Feeling something off in his expression, I waited for his response. Then, Tom opened his mouth slightly. Do you really love me? Of course. Liar. You hate me. Dad said so. Tom's words shocked me. Andrew had said that? What did he mean? What do you mean? Dad said I hate you? Yeah. I'm not fooled. You're a fake mom. It's your fault my real mom is gone. Tom left the room after saying that. I was devastated. I had nothing to do with his mother's departure. Yet Andrew blamed everything on me. Tom's refusal to open up to me, calling me a fake mom, was all Andrew's doing. That night, I confronted Andrew. Tom called me a fake mom. He wouldn't know to say that unless you told him. But Andrew just brazenly replied. I did say that, but it's not wrong, is it? Don't blame me for not being liked. I was so frustrated that I couldn't say anything back. I still didn't understand why Andrew would say such things. As time went on, my relationship with Tom didn't improve, and I found myself drifting further away from Andrew. But children grow up fast. And soon it was time to prepare for Tom's entry into elementary school. This backpack should be fine, right? Andrew pointed to an expensive backpack. I was taken aback by the price. It looks nice, but isn't it a bit pricey? Why don't you ask your parents to buy it as a gift? What? I was puzzled by Andrew's suggestion. Your family is wealthy, they can afford a gift for their grandson's school entry. Andrew said this without noticing my stunned reaction. Indeed, my family was well off. Owning real estate, and my grandfather even made it onto a rich list once. It wasn't surprising that Andrew, who went to the same high school as me, knew this before we married. It's common to hear of grandparents buying backpacks for their grandchildren's school entry. However, there's no blood relation between Tom and me. And since he didn't even like me, I never took him to my parents' place. Even when I suggested visiting them for New Year's greetings, Andrew refused, saying, Tom and I don't need to go. We're not blood related to your parents. You go alone if you want. So, how could I ask them to buy an expensive backpack? My parents had no attachment to Tom. That's going to be difficult. I replied with a wry smile, rejecting Andrew's suggestion. But Andrew got upset. Why not? Just ask them. If they say no, then I'll consider my options regarding our relationship. I was annoyed by his attitude. What did he mean by considering his options? I held back from saying anything. Of course, I couldn't ask such a favor of my parents. I secretly planned to buy the backpack with my own savings and pretend it was from them. Surprisingly, my parents offered to buy the backpack themselves. In our hometown, it's customary for maternal grandparents to give such gifts. I thought it might be overstepping if Tom's biological mom or Andrew's family were planning to give one, but isn't Tom's mom you, Sally? Those words from my mother warmed my heart. There were people who recognized me as Tom's mother. On days when I felt like breaking down, my mother was always my ally. Thank you. It doesn't have to be too expensive, just something Tom would find easy to use. I thanked my mother, my voice choked with emotion. Soon after, a brand new, shiny black backpack arrived. Tom's eyes lit up when he saw the backpack, and he excitedly tried it on. However, Andrew frowned upon seeing Tom's reaction. What's this? It's too plain. But this is a popular model, recommended by the store. It's lightweight and durable. Tom is petite, so a heavy backpack wouldn't be suitable, right? Nah, I don't care about it being lightweight. It lacks a sense of luxury. Andrew kept criticizing the backpack we got for Tom. Tom, who was initially happy, quietly took off the backpack and stopped paying attention to it after hearing Andrew's words. The same thing happened when Tom entered middle school. Expensive sports bags and shoes for school. Andrew demanded them from my parents, calling them gifts. Tom, who used to mimic Andrew in treating me poorly, started ridiculing me on his own as a middle schooler. Lucky you, marrying dad just because your family is rich. They would mock me like that. I was sure Andrew was feeding him these lines. I pretended not to notice, but by then, I was fully aware. Andrew married me for my family's money and to have someone take care of Tom. All right. Stop talking nonsense and get on with your studies. By this time, I had given up on being liked by Tom. Even if called a fake, I believed it was my duty to raise him as his mother. If I divorced and left, Tom would have a hard time living with Andrew alone. Tom would probably have a very hard time. I might not have been the mother Tom wanted, but my love for him was genuine. I wanted to spare him any hardship. Tom graduated high school and became a college student. Then Andrew suggested getting financial support from my parents for the high college fees. Your parents should pay for their grandson's education. The money will eventually be yours, so better use it for Tom now. But I couldn't ask my parents for such a large amount. College fees were a different matter from a backpack or sports bag. Knowing I'd face sarcasm from Andrew if my parents didn't pay. I used the alimony I received from my first divorce to cover the fees. I had other plans for that money, but I passed it off as support from my parents and paid for Tom's education. Thanks to that, Tom was able to attend college for 4 years. He got a job offer and was close to graduation. I couldn't build a good parent-child relationship, but I felt my role was fulfilled as he grew up safely. Then, one night, I woke up and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. I noticed the light on and thought Tom, who had gone out for drinks, must have returned. As I approached the kitchen to speak to him, I overheard a conversation. We don't need her anymore, right? I'm graduating in half a year and has a job lined up. She's useless, but let's keep her around until we get the inheritance. I want to get rid of the trash as soon as possible. It seemed Andrew was also there. We had separate bedrooms, so I only then realized Andrew was awake. I never intended to eavesdrop, but their disturbing conversation froze me in place. Trash. Tom repeated Andrew's words, laughing. Yeah. After the graduation ceremony, let's go out for a family meal. I'll treat you with my part-time job money. I looked up at those words, only to be plunged into despair the next moment. Actually, I've invited Mom to the graduation ceremony. She used to come to my school events when I was in elementary, but I haven't invited her recently, so I thought it'd be nice for the last time. Really? You're such a dutiful son. I'm looking forward to a family dinner, it's been a while. It was just a casual conversation about inviting his biological mother for dinner. It wasn't a bad thing in itself, and I didn't raise him expecting something in return. But ever since kindergarten, when I was turned away from an open day, I had been consistently refused attendance at all events and milestones. Even when I wanted to go to Tom's college graduation, I was told, no parents come to college graduations, and I had given up. Yet, he had been inviting his biological mother since elementary school. She did nothing in terms of childcare or education, merely gave birth, yet she reaped all the benefits. Andrew must have arranged the contact, but did he not have a shred of consideration for me? Even though I tried to accept it, Tom's words, implying his biological mother was more important than me, directly wounded me. Well, I'm not ungrateful to Sally, but she's not family. I wondered how to raise you when we divorced, but luckily found a good housekeeper. Yeah, the cleaning and laundry were fine, but I wish the food was better. I couldn't eat the lunches, always wondering who to sell them to. You made good money selling them, didn't you? Their conversation was followed by Tom and Andrew's laughter. I stood there, dumbfounded, hearing it. It was a shocking revelation. I had been making lunch every day since middle school, and he was selling it off. It was disrespectful to the recipients and a slap in the face to my efforts for Tom. I forced my frozen legs to move and quietly left the scene. I couldn't bear to hear their mocking laughter any longer, it felt like it would break my heart. 20 years of marriage. I raised Tom since he was 2. but I was never acknowledged as part of the family. I crawled into bed and cried. Then, I made a decision I had kept secret in my heart. For the next 6 months, I acted as if I hadn't heard anything and kept my behavior unchanged. Then came Tom's college graduation. He left early in the morning, all geared up. Of course, there was no word of thanks for raising him or an invitation to dine out. "Just a heads up, I won't need dinner today," was all he said before leaving. Had I not heard that conversation, I might not have minded, but I couldn't help feeling a simple word to me wouldn't have been too much to ask. He's probably going out to eat with his biological mom and Andrew. Andrew also said he wouldn't need dinner. After seeing them off, I was alone in the now quiet room, holding a pen and paper. Around 1 p.m., while I was out having lunch, my smartphone rang. It was a call from Andrew. I glanced at it and sipped my coffee with a smirk. I didn't plan to answer right away, letting it ring for a while. He must be panicking on the other end. Feeling a bit sorry for him, I finally picked up the phone. "Hello?
Sally! Where are you? What's this note you left?"
As expected, Andrew was in a frenzy. If he saw the note, he must have returned home. "Why would I tell you where I am? That wouldn't be running away, would it?" "Everything is in the note." Andrew stammered, but, unable to form coherent sentences. Since the conversation was going nowhere, I sighed deeply. "That's the situation. Please file the divorce papers I left." Upon hearing those words, Andrew finally seemed to snap to attention, his voice regaining some vigor. I had left the divorce papers along with the note.
"I won't accept a divorce. What about the unpaid tuition fees?"
His words made me smile again. Apparently, the unpaid tuition fees were more concerning to him than the divorce. "Oh? Aren't you supposed to be working? How do you know about that?" Andrew choked on his words. He attended Tom's graduation with Tom's biological mother. He must have found out about the unpaid fees at that time.
"Anyway, they said if we don't pay the outstanding amount by this month, he can't graduate. Please ask your parents to transfer the money."
"Why should I? Why does a mere housekeeper have to do that?" My tone got sharper, but it was my honest feeling. "I'm just a housekeeper, right? You've been brainwashing Tom not to get attached to me since he was little."
"That's not true. He was attached to you and even called you Mom." "Don't lie. He only called me Mom because you cared about appearances, right?"
Andrew fell silent. "Anyway, I've paid his tuition for 3.5 years. If you want him to graduate, why don't you pay at least the tuition for the last semester?" I ended the call with that. A few days after overhearing Andrew and Tom mocking me at night, a tuition fee invoice arrived. But, having been called nothing but a purpose for money and a housekeeper, I couldn't bring myself to pay it. The university contacted me several times. Under their policy, if tuition fees are unpaid, students can attend the ceremony as prospective graduates but will be dismissed if not paid by the day of the graduation. In short, I had to transfer about $12,000 by today. After hanging up with Andrew, Tom called.
"Hey, you old hag. What's this about unpaid tuition fees? Why haven't you paid it?"
It seemed he wasn't with Andrew. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare speak to me in such a confrontational manner. "Ask your father for the details. I have no intention of getting involved with you two anymore."
"What? What do you mean?"
"Well, take care."
"Wait, just a minute."
I cut off Tom's words and ended the call. Ever since I heard that conversation, I had decided to abandon them both. I disappeared from their lives. My phone kept ringing all day. If they had time for that, they should just make the transfer. The next day, I changed my phone and number. 3 months later, while at the town hall for some errands, I realized the divorce papers hadn't been submitted. 3 months had passed. What were they doing? Feeling indignant, I reluctantly returned home. The key still worked, and as I entered, a foul smell hit me.
"Yuck! What's this smell?"
It smelled like rotten food. Stepping into the living room, I saw the source. Scattered lunchbox trash, instant noodle cups, and a sink full of unwashed dishes. There were dirty socks and a pile of laundry, unwashed or not, I couldn't tell. In just 3 months, the house had turned into a garbage dump. But as one would expect, a house where 2 men who never did housework lived. It couldn't be clean. Still, I had hoped they would at least keep it somewhat tidy.
Sally! You came back!
Just then, I heard someone call my name. I shuddered. Turning around, I saw Andrew, unshaven. Work? I asked. Well, about that, I got fired.
Fired?
I took money from the company's safe to pay for Tom's tuition, and they found out. His words stunned me.
Embezzlement? For just $12,000?
Embezzlement is an exaggeration. I was fired, but the company said they'd let it go if I paid it back, and Tom doesn't need tuition anymore. So stop being stubborn and come back now.
Are you an idiot?
I yelled at him. I knew he was foolish, but this was beyond belief.
I already left a note saying I'm cutting ties with you too, didn't I?
But now that it's come to this, I can't live without you. It's all because you and your parents didn't pay for the tuition, right? I sighed deeply at Andrew's brazen attitude.
Please, come back. I love you.
Andrew begged, almost in tears. He had never said those words during our marriage. Now, such false words of love meant nothing.
You've always been dependent on others. Why don't you try to figure something out on your own for once?
I half smiled as I said this. A dirty room with a dirty man. A rustling sound caught my attention, and as I looked, a cockroach emerged from an abandoned cup noodle container.
This house will surely drive Tom away too. At this rate, your only family will be cockroaches.
I said, laughing. Andrew had no response and just hung his head. Afterward, the divorce papers were successfully submitted. 3 years in a new place. Just as I had finally found days filled with happiness, I received a piece of tragic news. It was news that my mother had passed away. On the day of the funeral, 2 shadows approached me as I sat. I slowly looked up. It's been a while. You look healthier than I thought. It was Andrew and Tom. We had many mutual acquaintances. Someone must have told them about my mother's death. Tom, who had always taken so much from my mother without saying thanks. But now he came to say goodbye. I was slightly glad and said, "You came." "Of course. You're an only child, right? So you'll inherit the money, and eventually, as your son, I'll inherit it too, right? I have to thank Grandma." "What?" I frowned, disgusted by Tom's outrageous statement. "What are you talking about? You have no right to inheritance. But even if we divorced, Tom is still our son, right?" Andrew smirked as he said this. Realizing they came for this reason infuriated me. "Leave. If that's how you feel, don't bother paying your respects." My voice was louder than expected, drawing attention from those around us. Andrew and Tom remained unfazed by my outburst. But then, someone arrived who could change the situation. "What's all this commotion? What's going on?" Approaching me were a man and a woman. Seeing them, Andrew and Tom turned pale. "Oh. My ex-husband and his son." I introduced Andrew and Tom to the couple. Upon hearing this, John and Erica frowned. Andrew, in a shaky voice, said, "Mr. President." "Why are you here?" "Mr. President? You know John?" I asked Andrew, but he didn't respond. Without waiting for his reply, I continued. "This is my husband John and our daughter Erica."
"What?"
Andrew and Tom looked up, shocked, and stared at me. "My wife has been a great help." "You're Tom from the administration department, right?" "Yes." "What does this mean?" "Andrew, you work for John's company?" I asked John, who nodded. Andrew looked uneasy, avoiding eye contact.
"I don't want to mix business with personal matters,
but if you hurt Sally any further, I won't forgive you. I didn't mean to. Andrew stammered. Tom, too, shrunk in size without saying a word. Erica then spoke up. I heard something about inheritance earlier, but Tom, you have no right to any. You're just her stepson. Her tone implied she knew Tom. So you're the stepson my mom talked about. Erica burst out laughing. Tom, who always looked down on me with such arrogance, was now reduced to a fraction of his size. As I looked at Erica questioningly, she said, My mom has a biological daughter, me. Why would her stepson have any right to inherit? A biological daughter. Yes. I'm not a stepchild, but a true blood-related daughter. Did you think you were the only child of my mother and that made you special? Tom turned bright red. He had never imagined I had a biological child. John, in fact, was my first husband. With him, I had Erica, but I was disliked by his parents and was denied the chance to raise her. You should think you have no child, was the mantra of my in-laws. I wasn't allowed to participate in Erica's upbringing. John always defended me, but his family had a long-standing business legacy. He couldn't stand up to his father, especially. Eventually, I fell into despair and reluctantly divorced. Afterward, I heard that Erica was lovingly raised by John. Despite John's parents, my former in-laws, constantly speaking ill of me to Erica, thanks to John, she grew up to be a kind-hearted girl, sending me letters once a year. I was married to Andrew at the time and had no direct contact with them. But John always made sure Erica met my parents, saying, she's their granddaughter. So, I always heard about Erica from my mother. I was curious about Erica, but being married, I couldn't express my desire to meet her. That's why my affection for Tom was all the more, but it was never reciprocated. I feel like I raised him more out of perseverance than love. Sometime after divorcing Andrew, John contacted me. He had heard about my divorce from my mother. Even after our divorce, John had never remarried and still had feelings for me. Now, my former in-laws, who had driven me away, had passed away. John, whose business was now stable, proposed remarrying. I told Andrew and Tom about my post-divorce life. That's why Erica is John's and my daughter.
Oh my!
Andrew turned pale. He never imagined that the woman he treated as a housekeeper was someone's beloved. Did you propose to me just because I'm the president's daughter? Erica sharply confronted Tom.
It wasn't like that. But your dad married my mom just for grandma's money, right?
I can't be with someone like that. Tom slumped in despair, secretly wiping away tears. I didn't know where they met, but apparently, Tom had proposed to Erica. If Tom hadn't been influenced by Andrew, the relationship between my biological child and the child I raised could have been a happy one. Unfortunately, Tom had become just like Andrew. Indeed, being with someone like Tom would be difficult. I nodded involuntarily. It was my mistake in raising him. I'm sorry, Erica. You deserve someone better. Tom, please step back from Erica and the money. Tom glared at me for a moment after being rejected publicly, but he couldn't retort. He was a victim of Andrew too, but now an adult. He won't find happiness unless he recognizes his and his father's faults. That's how it is, so please leave. This place is not meant for those who aren't family. John said that and then kicked both of them out. John said this, effectively throwing back the not family phrase that Andrew and Tom had once used against me. Andrew continued to work uncomfortably at John's company. He probably hated working at my husband's company, but given his age and the reason for his previous job termination, it's unlikely he'd find another job if he left. Why did you hire him? Did you know about Andrew? When I asked, John just smiled. Of course, I knew. Keeping him under me at work meant he couldn't harass you, right? John's words warmed my heart. I never thought he did it for me. Then, there was more surprising news. It seems like Tom has cut ties with his father. He's probably reflecting on his past actions and how he treated you. Apparently, Tom had moved out to live on his own. Rejected by Erica, his love interest, and realizing that the inheritance he expected wouldn't come, he must have understood that he needed to work hard to find happiness. I felt a sense of malice towards Andrew, but I didn't wish unhappiness for Tom. Hoping he grows and finds happiness, even through struggles, is proof that I was once his mother. Now, I live with John and Erica. After I left, seeing John and Erica depressed, my former in-laws seemed to regret their actions. But by then, I was already married to Andrew. There was nothing he could do. I thought you were happy, John said. There were happy times. I smiled.
But surely, the happiest times of my life are yet to come.
Erica is about to get married. I hope to live as long as possible and grow as much as possible so that I can laugh at all the hardships I have endured.